After ensuring the weapon is unloaded, we have 3 different styles of scope rings. These 3 scope rings allow you to turn the scope ring at an offset position, placing it at a 45-degree angle. With this scope ring on an existing scope, it makes it difficult to tighten the scope ring onto the scope body of the existing scope, while utilizing a scope ring that has a top half such as this. We suggest using a scope ring that has a split in half style, allowing you to easily access the screws at the top half. As you can see with the 3rd scope ring that I have in my hand, it also is the same style. As this sets in the offset position, it does not allow the installer to make contact with the screws on the very bottom side. We highly suggest utilizing a quick detached ring, which utilizes a knurled bolt or a quick detach lever. I'm going to disassemble this ring and prepare for the next stage. Now I begin the installation of the scope ring, and I place it at a 45-degree angle. I place it on the right side of the weapon when I'm attempting to observe a right-handed shooter. When placing this scope ring on an existing scope, ensure that there is plenty of room between the scope ring that's holding to the gun and the scope body at the front of the scope ring. It may be necessary to loosen the scope rings on your weapon and move a small amount forward or a small amount backward to allow the scope ring to be placed in its position. Go ahead and place in your screws, but do not tighten them completely until the next stage. The scope line of the scope ring should line up in the center between the top scope adjustment and the side scope adjustment. This will ensure that the IC2 will be somewhat level before you step to your next stage. Still, do not tighten these until the IC2 can be mounted onto the weapon. Prior to tightening the screws, loosen up the scope ring, insert the IC2, ensure that it is tight, and now you'll want to look over the top of the scope and look and check for levelness. If this appears to be level, then the IC2 is in the position which it needs to be placed. Once it's in the position that it needs to be placed, go ahead and tighten your scope ring into position. I now know that the IC2 is level. Since it is level, I'm going to go ahead and release the IC2 by turning the quick detach knob. I'm going to go ahead and tighten up my screws. Be careful not to over tighten. Go back and insert the IC2 into the offset scope ring and finger tighten. You can also tighten that with the Allen wrench if you wish to do so, but I found by utilizing the quick detach mounts that finger tightening will do just fine. After it's finger tightened, now we are ready to mount the non-magnified red dot scope or non-magnified sighting system. We take the red dot scope. I've just taken a standard red dot scope that you could buy at any store. Honestly, I've used the cheaper models. They seem to work just as well. We have found that scopes such as the reflex sights tend to have a lot of glare in them, so we like these red dot scopes a lot better. Take the red dot scope, loosen it up. Finger tighten. At this point, you can utilize a screwdriver and tighten these as well. We suggest not over tightening this. And now the IC2 is mounted to the weapon. If your state law allows, leave the IC2 on all season. If it doesn't allow, all you have to do is grab the bottom quick detach mount, remove the IC2, place it into your backpack. Now you're able to take the IC2, remove it, and then also replace it at any time. To sight the IC2 in, it's very simple. Wherever your gun is sighted in at, we'll use the example of 100 yards. We want to make the adjustment to the IC2 at the exact same aiming point, which would be 100 yards. So taking your weapon, utilize a shooting bench for someone to hold the weapon. You will take the weapon, you'll sight it at 100 yards, put in your crosshairs from your primary scope onto the target. I remove the side scope adjustment cover as well as the top scope adjustment cover. I then go behind the weapon and I look at the 100-yard mark, or I have the shooter that's holding the weapon hold on at 100 yards. Once I know that the weapon is sighted in at 100 yards, I go behind the red dot that's attached to the IC2. I look through the red dot and I identify where the red dot is pointing. If it's off the target from where the weapon is sighted in at, I then begin my adjustments.
Utilizing a coin or flat screwdriver, adjust the red dot scope to match the same aiming point of the primary scope. The IC2 Co-Witness is the ultimate shooting aid for any man, woman, child, or handicapped hunter. Utilizing the IC2, you are able to assist the shooter by grabbing the buttstock of the gun and help them to locate or hold on their intended target.
Ensure that you are always centering the red dot in the middle of the scope ring. You will have no problems.